Hi, welcome to the webinar today, the complete guide to WordPress for accountants. We'll get started really soon, but I'd love to know where you're dialing in from. I'm in the South Island of New Zealand. Lovely spring day today. We're just starting to get that nice weather, but I'd love to know where you're dialing in from today. And while you let me know that, you can just do that in the chat. A little bit of housekeeping. So we've got Ant here from the Bizink team on the session as well. She'll be happy to answer any technical questions you've got, or if you have any questions for me, you can fire those into the chat. You can use the Q&A as well, don't really mind. And I'll either answer those as we go or stick around for a Q&A at the end. So been doing WordPress for a long time. I would never call myself an expert in anything, but know a fair bit and happy to be grilled on it. It's a subject that I enjoy talking about. So please fire questions at me. The curlier, the better. We're recording the session and we will send that out in an email afterwards if you want to watch that. Well, so yeah, hi to Julie in Sydney. Hope you're doing well. Be in Sydney in a couple of months. Looking forward to that. Oh, hey, Pete in Waiheke. How you doing? Anyone doesn't know, that's a nice little island off Auckland. We had a good team meetup there one time. Hey, Heidi in Port Lincoln, how you going? Thanks everyone for joining today. So I'm going to get into it because we've got quite a lot to cover. WordPress is a big topic, and we'll get into it right now. So do you want my complete guide to WordPress for accountants in under 10 seconds? Hire a professional. Yeah. So look, I'm going to give you a webinar. I'm not going to be mean like that, but that would be my biggest advice, and you might be thinking Matt's going to say that because we build our websites on WordPress. But I want to tell you all about WordPress so you're in the know. But honestly, I'd say to you, it's very like your clients. You wouldn't be advising them to do their own bookkeeping and tax. You know how that's going to go. And I'd be the same about WordPress. It's an awesome platform for sure, and I'll show you that. But, so Xero, so QuickBooks or whatever that you use with your clients, but it still needs that expert to set it up and manage it properly, which doesn't mean you can't use it. It's not like I don't use Xero in our business, but it has to have that setup and management piece, in my opinion. If you want to DIY it, I'm going to give you some tips about that, but this will all be covering today. So I'm going to help you understand WordPress and whether you want to do it yourself or you want to pick an expert to work with. I'm going to show you that. And if you do want to do that DIY option, I'm going to give you some tips and show you some of the big pitfalls that you can avoid. And if that all sounds too much effort, then I'm going to offer you a WordPress website for $0 upfront at the end of the session. All right, so this is the agenda for today. We're going to do a bit of an overview about WordPress because there are a few myths and misconceptions there. We're going to have a look at design and themes. We're going to have a look at plugins and integrations, hosting and security, and then DIY versus hiring a professional. Q&A at the end, but as I say, if you have any questions as we're going along, more than happy to answer those. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat, and Nancy can butt in if anything is really relevant. A little bit about me. So Matt Wilkinson, I am the founder and CEO of Bizink. We've been helping accountants and bookkeepers with websites and marketing for a long time. Pretty worked with over 2,000 firms in the last decade. We built about 1,500 websites for accounting and bookkeeping firms, all on WordPress. And just a picture of me climbing a frozen waterfall for fun, something I don't get to do anymore now I've got kids. That keeps me giving some nice memories. So we help accountants and bookkeepers with the whole marketing journey at Bizink. And as you can see on screen, there's a bit of a framework here that we've created after working with a lot of firms over the last decade. 5 different stages to it: planning, attract, engage, convert, and retain. Nobody's doing all of these things really well. And even if some firms are sort of managing to do a bit of it, they could probably enhance in a few areas, in other areas as well. And websites are important at every stage of this framework, which we call leads to loyalty. Even after all this time, in terms of digital marketing, the website, and not just digital marketing, marketing in general, the website is still at the middle of your marketing ecosystem for an accounting and bookkeeping firm. But while it's at the center, I think why I wanted to show this is it's just one piece of the puzzle. Having an awesome website, if you're not pushing people there, if you're not doing good content on that website, it's not going to move the needle. So if you're interested in having a bit of a look at this marketing framework, maybe after the session, we've got a marketing scorecard that's really been popular. Anthea is going to post the link to the chat. It only takes a couple of minutes to do that, and you'll get a score on kind of where you probably need help with your marketing, and some really good free content as well. So into the session today, I was just going to run a quick poll as we get things kicked off. I'm interested in which platform your website is built on. So obviously I've put WordPress in there, Squarespace, Wix, and Weebly. They're the ones we come up with, that we see the most over time. Something else, or if you don't know, you can click something else as well. So if you just fill out that, and I'll see where this lands. I'll just give it a few more seconds. All right, cool. Let's end that poll and share the results. And it's kind of interesting because I reckon WordPress is about 75% of the websites of accounting and bookkeeping firms. It's really hard to know for certain. Now, we'll be talking about in a sec. WordPress is the most popular website platform in the world. It powers about 39% of all websites. So absolutely huge. And I think it's much higher when it comes to accountants and bookkeepers. I've done some kind of, I wouldn't call it statistically accurate kind of research or, polls and things like this, but it always comes out about 75%. And that's what we would say as a team anecdotally. We would see either in, obviously our clients are on WordPress, but when people come to us and switch, they're nearly always on WordPress to begin with. So, that's interesting. Like Wix is the second most popular one, but hard to get an accurate figure on that, but it's definitely a really, really popular platform. So let's have a talk a little bit about WordPress. There are a lot of myths and misinformation out there. And so I just wanted to do a kind of what WordPress is and what WordPress isn't, and hopefully that clears things up a little bit. WordPress started as a blogging platform in 2003, and it kind of got hacked into being an all-round website content management system. I started using it around 2006, 2007, when I had a marketing and website consultancy business. And it was just the kind of like the best tool that you could build a simple website with, but you kind of almost had to hack it to be a normal website. It was more for blogs. Now, for a long time, it's been, a full website content management system. And like I said, it's the most popular one in the world, about 39% of all websites. And like I said it in my notes, 75% of accounting bookkeeping websites, well, 78% in the little survey there. WordPress is an open source platform, and that means that the source code is available for anyone to download. So maybe you drop the link in the chat, and here's like wordpress.org. Right on the homepage there, you can download all of the code for WordPress. Now we'll talk about, does that make it free in a little bit, but the question I would ask is, are you a web developer? And I'm going to guess the answer is no. And if you're not, then should you be building a website? So you could get that and you could throw it on a server, or there's servers where you can just click and get WordPress, and there you go, you got a website pretty quick. But what you don't know what you don't know, and I think that's what I'll talk about. It's very much one of those things where website can be there, it's all good until it's not, and then it can really not be okay. So it's open source, it's free, you can do whatever you want with it, but that comes with a health warning as well. It's also highly extensible. So, like I said, you can change the code and you can add things like plugins and themes to get extra features, design. It's almost endless what you can do with WordPress. Pretty much anything you can do with websites, you can do it with WordPress. You can have an online store, you can have a membership site, you can have a gallery, you can have a video site. There's anything you can think of, you can do it in WordPress. But there's often when I say often, there's usually 50 different ways to do that, and knowing the right way is important. Another thing that causes confusion with WordPress is WordPress.org, which is the open source downloadable version where you have to host it yourself. Or there's WordPress.com, which is from the same company, but that's a hosted version which you pay for. Now, I don't come up against many WordPress.com sites. I'd say it's almost like an inferior version of something like Squarespace or Wix. I don't see it very much with advisors' websites, so I can't comment on it that much. I would just say, the downloadable version gives you a lot more flexibility. Now, what isn't WordPress? What's some things that I hear quite a lot, actually? One of them is that you can only do certain templates. You can only make WordPress sites look a certain way. So, I've had people say, we don't want it to look like a WordPress site. That's a meaningless thing. A WordPress site can look like anything you want. You can code it whatever way you want. There's literally no limitation on what a WordPress site can look like. It does happen that there are a lot of templates that you can apply to WordPress sites, but that's the same as any website platform. You look at Squarespace, Wix, you can often see sites that look exactly the same and then sites that look completely different. So it's any website platform has to have like a theme layer that controls the design, and that can be done by templates. It can be done by custom. I'm going to show you some websites in a minute. Will completely blow away that idea that WordPress is like very fixed in terms of design. Another one that I hear is that WordPress is really good for SEO, as in like Google loves WordPress sites, which is nonsense. Google likes good websites, doesn't care what platform they're built on. It happens that if you are a search engine optimization person, expert, or whatever you want to call it, then WordPress does make it quite easy to make a lot of tweaks. But it's not inherently good for SEO. That's just not true. Another one that we hear is WordPress is insecure. And you hear that a lot. We've lost deals because of that. People we won't have a WordPress site. Now, there is something in that because lots of WordPress sites do get hacked, but that's because there are lots of WordPress sites. It's not because WordPress is inherently insecure. It's just that, if you power 39% of the websites in the world, you're going to get, a bigger proportion of the hacking incidents happen. So I think you've got that. There's a lot of websites, so you hear about it more. And then the other thing is that because it's open source, a lot of those websites are badly set up. They're badly set up, they're badly managed, they're badly hosted, they don't have good security around them, and so they get hacked. And that's going to be my theme of this webinar, really. I'm going to show you, but really having a professional there in some capacity with your WordPress site, I would say is an essential, because you don't know what you don't know about it. It's complex and there's a lot to know about. And if you don't, you can be opening yourself up to security issues. But it can be as secure as any web platform out there if you do the right things. The other one is that WordPress is free. So like I say, you can download that source code for free, and you might even be able to get a site built yourself. But will that site have, like I just mentioned, like will it have the right hosting, security? Will it have the right features? How long is that going to take you to do that? So free isn't always free, right? Like, sometimes paying for something is a lot cheaper than free. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to some of the more kind of technical aspects. So it is free, but it's kind of not really, that you got the source code, but what you do with that, there's cost to that. So that's a little bit about WordPress. In terms of where we're going to go next. Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm going to talk, just wanted to show you. So if you think that WordPress is a basic website platform, or it's for template sites that look all the same, or it's insecure, so some of those things that I raised there, have a look at the list of sites there. So these are all websites using WordPress. Walt Disney, Sony Music, TechCrunch. That surprised me, actually, when I was doing the research for this. That's a huge website. The Rolling Stones, the band, and Vogue. And that's just a few, right? I could have put a list of 50, 100 up there, huge websites. and they're all using WordPress. So it's an awesome platform if you use it right, kind of just like anything really. But yeah, just like your cloud accounting software, if you use it right, it's amazing. Put it in the wrong hands, not so good. But yeah, that's the list of some huge websites that are using WordPress, and I don't think they would be doing it if it wasn't fit for purpose. Okay, so we're going to go through the main areas of WordPress, and the first thing you're going to want to do when you've got a WordPress site, which will come with a very basic theme in there, which WordPress provide, you're going to want to get it to look better, right? And that's where themes come in. So theming is like a design layer that sits on top of the website content. One of the bits I don't like about WordPress is that themes actually often have some settings with them. So I think in like a properly architected system, it would be better to just have design completely separate from content and settings. And you can do that with WordPress, right? Like you can do that, but a lot of themes mingle in a bunch of settings, which can kind of complicate it. So if you change themes, it can kind of mess your site up a little bit. But if you think of the main as a design layer, then that's basically what they're trying to do. Now, like I say, there's some WordPress standard themes that come with all websites when you install a new version of WordPress. And then you've got free themes. So there are like tens of thousands of free themes that you can get out there. And there's a huge range of quality there in terms of quality of design, quality of code, loading speed, and all of those things. There's a really good one called Astra. I think that's the most popular WordPress theme on the screen there. It's the top right. And that's a really good one to start a website off with. Then you've got premium themes. That's probably where I'd be looking if I was doing it myself. So like free themes, there's a huge range of quality there. But many of those free themes, like Astra that I just mentioned, have a premium option that you can upgrade to get extra stuff. Now, the thing about these, they all going to promise like a beautiful website, even if you're not a web developer, right? Everyone says that, you just need to drag and drop a few things or whatever. But the thing is, you're not a web designer, right? I'm not a web designer either. I can build a website, but I can't make it look awesome. That's why we have web designers. And what we found when we got clients coming to us, sometimes from WordPress or sometimes from platforms like Wix and Weebly and Squarespace, where again, they have that promise that hey, anyone can build a beautiful website. It's not quite as easy as it sounds. You've still got to lay things out, drag and drop, pick colors. It's a bit harder than it sounds. The other thing about a lot of those premium themes that I've found is that they're quite bloated in terms of features and code. So, they're all trying to outdo each other and offer loads of value. I think like a really stripped back and simple theme offers more value than one with loads of settings because it bloats the theme. It makes your site run slower in the back end, the front end, which doesn't help you edit the site. It can make it slower for, search engines don't like slower sites. And you're probably not going to use a bunch of those features. So kind of the option I like is what you call starter themes. So they're like usually free, very basic themes. So they look almost like no design, and then you can build out a custom theme from them. So, you can do a full custom theme where you do that from scratch. You need to be a web developer to do that. And even if you are, most people would start with a starter theme because it just starts you further along down the track. And we use one called Understrap at Bizink, and that forms like the basis of all of the custom themes that we build for clients. So, choosing a theme is really important. You can do it yourself, but I think having someone to guide you through that and make it look great is still really important in my experience. I've rarely seen a site where someone's come along and said, hey, we DIY'd our site. We want to upgrade to Bizink or whatever. I've rarely seen a good one. I can't remember if I've ever seen a good one. And it's just hard, I think these things, the companies who do these things will always sell you the dream that it's super easy. it's kind of not. Now, taking that a little bit further, you have these things called block or page builders, and if you get into the WordPress world, you're going to see these pretty quickly. There's one, well, WordPress has one built in now called Gutenberg. So, you know, basically it's like a drag and drop editor. Divi, Elementor, they're really popular options. I really don't like those as a way to build websites. I think that the promise of doing it is great, but the reality is not so much. It gets quite hard to manage a website like that. Biggest pain point we find with accountants and bookkeepers is having time to do marketing, and that extends to the website. You don't want to be dragging things around and doing layout stuff. In my opinion, it's way better to have the layout done by some professionals, and then you just type in, putting the content where you need it. And the problem with those like block editors, it's like adding a whole application layer on top of the website. So maybe you've used one of those, it can make it really slow to load in the back end. And it can also be a real headache if you want to import content or export content, because it's all in these kind of custom layouts, and then it's not going to work like that in your new site. So I could go on about that a lot. I really dislike those block editors. Some people love them. I feel that they kind of give too much control, where really what you want is simplification. You know, they've got all these options to style everything, but you know, do you really want to be doing that, where the most important thing in websites is good content and you know, writing and that kind of thing. So moving on from design and themes, I want to look at plugins and integrations, because this is probably the best and worst aspect of WordPress. So plugin is basically, it adds extra functionality to WordPress. So you can add these plugins through the back end of WordPress really easily. And they can do things like online forms, they can do spam checking, they can do search engine optimization. There's one called WooCommerce where you can have a whole e-commerce store pretty much out the box for nothing, right? Like you just do that and you've got an e-commerce store straight away. But the fact that they're so easy to use is also what's really kind of dangerous about them. So there's like 59,720 plugins as of this morning on the WordPress plugins directory. And you know, there's high risk and reward in using them. So reward is, you know, you can add some cool stuff to your website. I don't imagine many of you want to build an e-commerce site, but you know, that's what you could do. You can have an e-commerce site, click, there it is. But there's a ton of extra stuff you need to know with all of that. So it's almost like putting a lot of power in your hands without really explaining what these things do, because what you're doing here is adding extra code to your website. And if you're not a web developer, which I'm guessing none of you are, you can't evaluate that. So the code there could be, you know, let's say somewhat bad, which might slow your site down or cause conflicts with other plugins or WordPress itself. But at worst, it could be insecure and you could get hacked. And that is a very real risk. We'll talk about security and that kind of thing later. So you can see some of the plugins on screen here, which are the really popular ones. Like Akismet is one that scans for spam. It's produced by the people who produce WordPress. Great plugin, you know, it's a no-brainer. It's free, and then they've got a very cheap paid version, and it will keep your site pretty much free of spam comments, you know, people, which get quite annoying. So you've got things like that are they've been installed by hundreds of thousands of people. You know it's good. You're pretty safe with that. But some of the less popular plugins, which might be an integration from like your CRM or something like that, they're not installed by that many people. They don't get updated that much. And that can be a real risk. You know, security is an ever evolving thing. So, you know, what was okay 6 months ago might not be okay now. And so adding these plugins, and sometimes we've had a look at people's sites who are coming across to us, and they've installed like every plugin under the sun. You know, and they haven't been updated for months or years. It's a huge risk to your site, especially in an environment now where we've got the incidence of hacking, generally, not just of WordPress sites, has gone up loads for various reasons over the last year or so. So in terms of like when you're picking plugins, I think that the first thing I would say is have as few as possible. The less code you've got, the better, which is just a general rule. But when you're choosing them, I think you want to choose the really highly rated ones. So you can look at that one there, Kismet. It's got like 794 5-star ratings. That's good. You know that's pretty good. You want to check they're being updated regularly. So when you click into WordPress, you can see when the last update was done to that, and you want to see like a real regular and recent updates are happening. Remember that free is not always cheap, right? So a lot of the premium versions of plugins are not that expensive, and considering what's at stake, it's often way better to buy the premium one. I'm not a big fan of free stuff because the person developing it, what's in it for them? Some of these things are a labor of love, right? And they're fine. I'm not saying all free plugins are bad, but I feel like I'd rather be putting my business behind something that someone's getting paid for. So, they're incentivized to update the thing and all of that. So when you get your plugins installed, you always want to keep them up to date. So, that often popular plugins are being updated once a week, more than once a week, some of them. And you can turn on auto updates if you want. I'd probably recommend that. In the past, you might have run into a bit of trouble with that, but I feel like now WordPress is a very stable platform in the main, and the odd time you might get a bit of an issue, as long as you've got backups and you can roll back, and we can talk about that. That's probably the greater good than having out-of-date plugins. So I would just set them to auto update, and just let that happen, or at least update them really, really regularly. So you need to go into your site, check them, update them, maybe test them if you want. You can do that. A staging site can help with that. If you've got that, that's something that we do at Bizink. We have staging sites, so we can sort of like create a copy of the website, test, and then see if it's okay. And then the other one I'd say is that you want to use a malware scanner. So like I said, the instance of malware, of hacking, it's gone up a lot. And one of those reasons is the Russian situation, the war in Ukraine. So the Russian hackers are doing a lot, right? It's one of the ways they can cause mayhem, and WordPress sites are a target there. So having a layer in between your website and the world is really good. And a malware scanner can do a bunch of things, but one of the things we'll be looking at is checking your plugins, checking for issues, and can really be an extra level of security that you can put in. So yeah, plugins are awesome. They can add a lot to your site, but put on as few as you can. Plugins you're not using, delete them. You want the least amount of code as possible, just less to go wrong. So hosting and security. Let's talk about hosting first. What is hosting? So it gets confusing, right? There's domain hosting, there's website hosting, and there's email hosting. Sometimes that's done by the same company. Sometimes it's done by different companies. You definitely need domain hosting. So that's often with someone like GoDaddy or Crazy Domains, or the couple of the popular ones. So you need to register your domain and point that different places. So you're obviously going to want to point that at a website, and you put your email and things like that. So you have your domain here, and then you can have your website hosted somewhere else with the domain pointing at it. What I'm going to talk about here is website hosting. So there's different options, right? So number one would be like self-host your website. Used to be a thing. Don't know anyone who does that anymore. Don't know why you would do that. Crazily difficult and risky thing to do. Popular one for people who are doing DIY WordPress sites is shared hosting, sometimes called VPS hosting. So for example, Bluehost is a really popular WordPress host. WP Engine is a good one. HostGator, not so good one. And, most of those are pretty cheap and cheerful. But there can be some issues, right? Because you're basically going on a server with a bunch of other sites, and that can mean it slows down. Some of those other sites get a load of traffic. You can be on a server with some dubious sites. I've seen that happen with not one of my own sites, but someone in my family. They were hosted on Bluehost, and that got them their site pinged because of the IP address it's connected to. And I guess the biggest thing I think with shared hosting is that, unless you're an IT person, it can give you too much and not enough control at the same time. So too much in the sense that, you're now responsible for a server. I mean, of course, the company you're buying the shared hosting off is going to do a bunch of that stuff, but you still need to be in there doing some technical stuff, which, that's not really what I think you should be doing. But the other side of that is often there's not enough control in that those shared hosts lock things down to make it more favorable for them. They don't care about your particular kind of the way you want to run WordPress or how fast you want to run your site or all of those things. So, you might not have enough control to make certain tweaks, and you often don't find that out until the problem's there and it's a bit too late. The other thing is to go for like what's called dedicated hosting. So that's where it would just be your site on some hosting that's provided by a hosting company. So for example, WP Engine is a good host of WordPress sites. They would do dedicated hosting and it's just your site. You can probably have a dedicated IP address. And that's a lot better, right? Like it's going to be more secure, probably. It's going to probably be faster. Might be a bit more config needed. That's probably a better option. Now, what I'd say about hosting is that you can have the best website in the world, but if you've got bad hosting, you've got a bad website because it'll be too slow, people will go away, could be insecure. So my recommendation would be to use a company that manages it for you, right? And not just manages the hosting piece, manages the whole plugins, themes, and all of that. Obviously, I'm saying that because that's what we do at Bizink, but that we've built that model around what I think is the right way to do WordPress. Optimized for the kind of clients we have, which is only accountants and bookkeepers. And then we get those efficiencies of scale across managing lots of sites. So, we can get better hosting cheaper. We can get malware scanning. We can get firewalls and stuff like that you're just probably out of reach for you paying for a site on your own. Whichever option you choose, something that is really important, it's sort of hosting, but more security, is to back up your site daily, at least daily, and do that outside of the web server. So, like another place in the cloud. Because if your site gets compromised, then at least you've got clean versions you can roll back to. And given that most accounting and bookkeeping sites don't change that often, that might be quite easy to do a rollback. So one of the good practices in security is almost to assume that you will get attacked. And if you did, you can rectify that really easily. Because, we've all seen huge websites get hacked, government websites and all of that. So nobody's invulnerable to that stuff. Anyone who tells you they've got 100% security, like run a mile. You make your very best effort, but it's still possible that you get hacked. The smarter person will say, look, if we did get hacked, this is how we're going to deal with that. And, they've ring-fenced off different parts of their infrastructure and they can bring that back. So before I talk about security, in terms of hosting, and I know I sound like a stuck record with the hire a professional thing, but you would get it, right? Being an advisor to business owners, you want them to hire you. Are you an accountant or are you a sysadmin to managing servers? Because that stuff is, it's mind-boggling technical, We had a big transition off our old Amazon Web Services environment last year, and it was hugely complicated, something I never ever want to repeat. I just don't think that's something you want to be bringing into your weekly workflow. So in terms of security, like I talked about before, that WordPress isn't inherently insecure in any way, but many WordPress sites are set up badly and they're managed wrong. So yeah, like I say, best thing, get an expert, and I'll give you some tips on how to hire one in a second. But if you want to do it yourself, here's some basics that I would do to make your site more secure. So number one would be keeping WordPress core, so WordPress itself, on the latest version as soon as it happens. And I would do that through having the auto updates on. So like, even at the risk of the site breaking and then you having to roll back or fix what broke it, I think that's a better policy than relying on you to remember to update it. Keep all your plugins up to date. Already talked about that. Do that in the same way. Don't scrimp on hosting. So I think shared hosting comes with a lot of risk. If you do, go with one of the really good ones like WP Engine, they've got a good reputation. Use a malware scanner. So WordFence is a good one. We use one called Malcare. It's an extra expense on top of your hosting, but it's kind of like insurance. It's a grudge purchase until the disaster happens, and then it's the best thing you ever bought. Only have a few users on your site, so don't set up a bunch of user accounts, and insist on strong passwords, perhaps even 2FA, and daily backups, like I said. So do all of that stuff, but if the worst happens, you've got backups. Now, just to give you an indication, like we spend well over $200,000 a year on WordPress stuff, keeping our sites set up right, hosted, secure. It's a lot, right? And adding to that, like, I don't know, we've probably got 30 odd years of experience across the team of working with WordPress. We've launched and hosted 1,500 websites. We follow security blogs and podcasts, and we're dealing with this stuff every day. So I'm not trying to big up Bizink here. I'm just showing the advantage of anyone can get a WordPress site up there, but do you have all of that knowledge and resource to make sure that it's okay? Because it tends to be okay then, and then it's not. Okay, so what's the best website platform for accountants and bookkeepers? I love WordPress, but I'm just going to say the best website platform is the one you build an awesome website in. It doesn't matter. If you want to do that in Wix and it works for you, Wix is the best platform. It doesn't matter. But I think that WordPress gives you the best chance of building an awesome website. And and that's why it's the most popular platform. It might not be the best for a certain use case, but I think generally it is the best. And in terms of like the DIY and hiring a professional piece, you could leave this webinar, right? And this afternoon, you could get a cheap hosting account. You could install WordPress with one click, probably. There's often they have that in the control panels and there's hosting. You could add a theme, you could add some content, point your domain, and you've got a WordPress site. So DIY absolutely could work, and some people are doing that. I guess where I see it not working is, even if you did what I said, it's still going to take you 2 or 3 hours if you know what you're doing. And then you got to add the content, and then you got to get the site to look good. So I don't know, 2 days to do that minimum. So you've got a site, but then do you know how to update the WordPress core? Do you know how to update the plugins? Do you know how to manage a server? Are you running the right version of PHP, for example? Do you know what PHP is? Can you update it? Say the site's showing an error. That happens in WordPress a fair bit. A lot of them are nothing. They're really easy to fix, but you need to know code. So what might be a 2-minute job for our devs or, a good WordPress developer, that could be 2 days of frantic, internet searching through forums to work out what it is. So I guess, yeah, WordPress works well until it doesn't with the DIY option. And, I know I'm like a stock record, hire a professional, because if that fits within your budget, then I think that's the best way to go. If you don't have a lot of budget, I'd probably say go to a platform like Wix or Weebly or Squarespace, because they're hosted in the cloud, and you're not worrying about some of that stuff that I don't think you should be dealing with. So if you are thinking about hiring a professional, and we would love that to be Bizink. We've just come up with a new way. We've unbundled our pricing so that instead of kind of having packages, it starts at $0 setup, and you can add some stuff in. I'm going to show you that in just a second. But when you're hiring, these are questions that you should probably think about if you're trying to hire a professional. So I would ask them how many WordPress sites they've built. I would ask them who will be managing the WordPress core and plugin updates. I just sold 3 websites to a bookkeeper in Australia, and her biggest thing was she'd logged into her old WordPress site and the developer had never updated the plugins. Some of them were like 4 years out of date, which is a mega security risk. And yet she was just absolutely terrified by that. So, you ideally you want them to be managing that, put them on auto updates, even better, they do some testing and things like that. Grill them on the hosting. Ideally you'd get some outside IT input into that, because you're probably not a hosting expert. You really want to grill them on that part, how they're going to host the site. And then ask them how they scan and protect the sites, against malware, because that's a really important element as well. So if you're looking to get a WordPress site, we've got this new service that we offer called Express Websites. So you can get a WordPress site, so $0 setup in 1 to 2 days. And it's only $49 a month or $4.90 for a year. So it's basically we'll do a bit of basic content configuration, but then you'll have the website and you can add the content yourself. All the good hosting and things like that we do. And if you want more features, so we've got things like blogs, email marketing, social media integrations, you can scale that up either as you buy the site or as your site grows. So that's something we've just launched. We'll launch a quick poll if you want me to get in touch with you, and I can give you a call, can email you. If you're not interested, let me know, or you can book a meeting with me using the link that Auntie is going to drop in the chat, and we can show you how that works. So I'll just let that run for a second. But yeah, basically one of the things that we found is that a website project can be it can be like a source of procrastination, right? To put it bluntly. And we want to be able to get sites live quicker, because often what holds us up is getting sign off, and that's not to kind of point fingers at anybody, but I think having an express option where we can get that done really quickly is going to be really popular. But that's what we've created. I will get in touch if you're interested in that. I can show you more, and I'll be happy to show you around how it works. So I'll just close that off. And I will stick around for some questions. So hopefully that's given you a good overview of WordPress. I mean, it's a huge topic. My summary would always be hire a professional. And if you're going to DIY it, then just take into account some of those things I said. Don't scrimp on the hosting. Make sure you keep everything up to date, and invest on the security side, like malware. I think if you do those things, you still might completely frustrate yourself and spend a lot of time, but you probably won't get hacked. And that's obviously pretty important. I'm happy to stick around for any questions you've got. Auntie will jump on and ask me. Thanks for coming along, John, Julie.
Cool. Hi, everyone. We do have a few questions that have come in as we've gone, but use this time to chuck any more in the chat if you have any. The first question is, would like to know what you can't do in Wix over WordPress.
I have no idea. I don't think I've even logged into Wix, to be fair. But, I think in WordPress, I'm obviously biased, but the strength of WordPress is you can do everything. And that's probably also the weakness of it, is not the weakness, it's the problem, because I've been on some accountants' websites, and I'm thinking of one person in particular who's a friend, and he had installed every plugin. It's like he'd been going in every day and installing more plugins, and yeah, the site, it crawled because, just added all of this code. And so where am I going with this? You can do anything with WordPress. And I think Wix is a bit more limited in what you can do, but that's not a bad thing. So I think what I'd always say is like, what do you want a website to do? For most people, it needs to look good, have some good content on there, perhaps rank for searches. Most website platforms can do that. So I think that, yeah, all I've said there, a lot of it's quite technical. I think that, good content is the key to a good website, it looking good. I think what I like about WordPress is it's just a lot more flexible, so that, obviously Wix is an app like Squarespace, like Weebly, and all the advantages that come with that. You don't have to manage it, you don't have to manage plugins, you don't have to manage hosting, but they tend to just be a little bit more limited. So that's probably what I'd say.
We've got a couple of questions on similar theme, I think. So
Mhm.
what plugins do you recommend?
Mhm. Yeah, so I can see John's asking that question as well in a slightly different way. So I think that first of all, like reiterate that the least amount possible is good. And maybe if I talk about the ones that we have on Bizink websites, then I'd go from there. So the first one will be you need some online forms to put on the. So but actually, I'll go back one step. We try to code all of our own stuff because then we know who wrote the code. Now, there are certain plugins where it will be stupid to write it ourselves, because what you can buy will be so hard to do and is so good and so trusted and so established that why would you do it yourself? And one of those would be gravity forms. You need online forms on your website, right? You need to have a contact form. You need to have probably a newsletter form. Be good to have like a customer services form, that kind of thing on your website. So if you want that, get Gravity Forms. It's pretty cheap. We're on some mega good deal because we've been on it for years and years. So I think we get it ridiculously cheap, but it's super good. So you want forms, get a Kismet, which is built by Automatic, who create WordPress. That's a spam filtering one. So if you have forms, you can integrate that with it and you won't get those comments, which is like, do you want to buy some Viagra or whatever? That's crap that comes through your website. So that will filter out pretty much all of that. You'll want an SEO plugin, probably want an SEO plugin on there. So Yoast is the one we recommend. All-in-one SEO pack is another really popular choice. Possibly a caching plugin. So that's going to make your site faster. Potentially, it can also be a massive pain. I won't go into the details why, but yeah, so we have caching on our sites, but it's very integrated with the hosting. Caching can be like install a caching plugin, you'll see there's like a million options. It's quite a good illustration of what WordPress is like. There's like WP Cache, I think it's called, and then what's the other one? Search for caching plugins. There's two that come up. They've got all the good reviews and all of that, but we can find out and drop an email afterwards. But that's a really good example of where they've probably got about 200 options you can choose of like, do you want to minify JavaScript and cascading style sheets? What? Like, that's probably one of the easier ones. So there's all these weird settings and you don't know if it should be yes, no, maybe. It's a good example of that. But yeah, a caching plugin can be good. That's it. There's probably not. And Anthea, would you any others?
Those are probably the key ones. I totally agree that less is more. They're
Yeah,
notorious for being able to break things, aren't they? So
it can get out of hand. I mean, the thing about Gravity Forms is that can back into all kinds of other apps, and it can back into Zapier. So you can do like form on your website, blap, and it goes somewhere else. So that actually takes in a load of use cases of what you might do. The other one you might put in, like we have it on the Bizink website, is a CRM or marketing plugin. So we have HubSpot, and that integrates our site with HubSpot, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, SEO, caching. So yeah, make your site faster, make it rank better in search engines, which those plugins alone won't necessarily do that. You still got to config them. That would be my probably out the box WordPress stack of plugins to put in. You know, you can definitely build an awesome site with just those.
You mentioned Yoast SEO. Got a question, does Bizink help with SEO?
Yeah, we do actually. We just kind of beefed up our SEO team. The technical side of SEO is almost the least important side of it. So, you know, you'll all have been on the receiving end of SEO experts, want to rank #1 in Google, you know, here's some report that's got a load of crosses on it and, you know, makes you start worrying that something's wrong with your site. You know, it's mostly bullshit, nothing to worry about. The main thing in terms of SEO is creating good content. So, you know, if you're based, you know, Brisbane, like around here, if you want to be like ranked #1 for accountants Brisbane, it's pretty quite hard. You better like going down to an area. You need stuff that relates to that, right? If you don't mention that on your website, you know, it's not going to come up very well. So that, you know, good content that's relevant to what people are searching for, and then people linking back to you. So, you know, if you've got links from all kinds of places, whether it's Zero Directory, QBO, other blogs, social media, that's all good stuff. So you can, yeah, we can help with all of that. We're sort of the technical side, of course, of the site. We do that for all of our clients. But then if you want to take SEO to the next level, it's more about looking, what's the opportunity around search? Like how many people are actually searching for whatever it is? Because it might be none, you know, it might be very easy to get to the top for that thing. But if no one's searching, what's the point? So you're trying to find, well, what we can do is find those terms which they're not super competitive, but there's enough traffic that it's worthwhile ranking for, and then optimizing the content and getting people linking back to the site. So yeah, we do SEO, technical stuff, content stuff, backlinking, but it all starts with that, trying to work out what the opportunity is.
Just thinking, there's a few Bizink clients on here today. If you are interested in SEO for your existing Bizink website, you can reach out to me and I'll put my email in the chat now. If you're a non-Bizink client and you're looking to chat with Matt about the Express website offer we mentioned before, probably best to book that meeting and we can just chat all about it at once there. Just the last question, Matt, that I can see for now, unless, oh, okay, I've just seen another one from John. What do you think about Google and Bing advertising?
Probably don't do it. Not a lot. Honestly, I've been asked this a bit recently. It works if you've got a highly commoditized offering. So I've seen it work with a couple of firms, one in the States, one in Australia, and they both did a variation on $99 tax returns. If you don't do that, you know, I think that you're throwing money away. You know, you'd have talked to a heap of firms, Anthea, who've been like, I've spent X number of grand a month on PPC advertising and it got us nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't know why people keep doing it, because I don't know what it is. I think it's because it seems like it's set and forget, or it's easy. I don't know. Maybe you tell me, the people on the webinar, but like, if you think about it, the people you want have probably already got an accountant or a bookkeeper. The people who've got good businesses and all of that. And that's why referrals work the best of all, because, you know, it's coming from that channel. But yeah, in terms of like, I think if I were looking for an accountant, would I jump on Google and search and click on an ad? I don't think so. You know, it's a trusted relationship, and what I hear from people who've run AdWords, you probably had the same conversation. Yeah, people are, oh yeah, we have got leads, and I'm like, how many? Oh, a few. Like, what's a few? Oh, 2 or 3, maybe 2. Were they good leads? No. Did you get any clients? Yeah, 1, but they quit the next month. That's generally what I hear.
Last question is, what hosting does Bizink use?
Yeah, we switched last year, so we use a platform called Cloudways, which is has been amazing actually. It's blown me away how good that has been. So they basically like a hosting layer on top of, you can do it with Amazon Web Services or Google. We use one called DigitalOcean. It's been flawless, super, super good cloud hosting, backups, firewalls. We were on Amazon Web Services, and I'll never give them another dollar in my life. It was a horrible experience in the end. Maybe that was just us, but yeah, it's been really good, and I'm super confident in them and their ability to deliver good websites. Which yeah, believe me, if you're hosting as many websites as you do, if that part of the business isn't working how you want, it doesn't lead to good sleep.
Yeah, keeps you up at night for sure.
It does, yeah, yeah.
Those are all the questions I can see.
All right, well, thanks heaps for coming along. Hopefully that gave you a good overview of WordPress. There's so many ways that could go. If you've got any questions, I'll put my email in the chat now. Honestly, feel free to reach out or connect with me on LinkedIn. Always happy to chat with people there. Thanks, John, for coming along. Yeah, WordPress is great. It's really powerful. It can be really dangerous. That's how I'll probably end it. And like I started, hire a professional. And yeah, if you're interested in a WordPress site, we can do that. Like book a meeting with me, and I can chat through either that Express sites or other options we've got. We've got heaps of ways we can do that. Cool. Yeah. Thanks heaps. Enjoy the rest of your day, and appreciate you coming along. Take care.